Hi, this is Patrick Henry, the CEO of QuestFusion with The Real Deal, What Matters. I'm here today with Kian Saneii. Kian is the CEO of Independa, a very cool company we're going to hear about today. His background, he was a general manager at WebSense, another very cool company that did extremely well, founded here in San Diego. His background is primarily in marketing and business development and general management, but have done some very interesting web-based companies. I think you went to school on the East Coast and were originally from Iran. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got here to the U.S. and kind of a little bit about your career and your background and anything that'd be interesting for our audience of entrepreneurs here.
Wow, that's a long story. So I was born and raised in Iran. I went to an American school there. It was shut down after the revolution. It was called the Spy House, so I had to leave.
Okay.
And I finished high school in Greece.
Okay.
And I went to East Coast, like you said, for university. I went to NYU undergrad. Then I joined Bell Labs, so a technology guy, and then got my master's in computer science while I was in Bell Labs. So I did a bunch of work in the East Coast, and then I met my wife, and she was in California, so here I am.
Okay, well, that's a good reason to move to California.
Yeah, exactly.
So were you working for Bell Labs in New Jersey, or where
in New Jersey, I was in Middletown.
Okay, cool.
We were the first group, actually, that moved into Middletown, which was a big facility, and it's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I used to play soccer at the Homedale facility, Monday, Wednesday, Friday afternoons.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, so why don't you tell me a little bit about Independa? Did you start the company, and kind of what do you guys do, and tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So yeah, I'm the founder of Independa, and so I did start it, but of course it takes a village, and it took a village to get us this far. I always give credit to IDEO, the design firm, because I went to them in 2009 actually and asked them the question, how come 30 years into this, the brand for technology for the elderly is still iPhone and I can't get up?
Okay.
And so that was really the basic premise of, there's a market here, how come we haven't done better?
Yeah.
And what does it take to do better in this marketplace? So they did their normal great magic, and they came back with two things. One was that no one's put together a holistic system. No one's put together something that is not like a gizmo or a gadget or just does one thing, even though that one thing may be really important. So examples of one things are telemedicine, or life story recordings, or cognitive tools, or activity and behavioral tracking, or help with activities of daily living.
So this is all about people that need some type of medical or assisted help, and you're helping them be more independent as opposed to being in like a primary care facility. So these are tools all around that?
Exactly. So everything we do is person-centric, not patient-centric. So if you're in the care of someone in a hospital or a doctor, then you're a patient. But the other 99.99% of the time, you're trying to stay independent on your own, and you're trying to stay in the current stage of care and not go to the next stage of care. So that was one thing. They said no one had put together a holistic person-centric view versus a patient, episodic-centered view. Okay. And then the other thing, which was equally important, they said you need to have really social engagement and it to be fun and engaging and easy and simple. And it's all about thriving. It's not about being old or needing help.
Okay.
And those two items combine to really create the DNA of Independa, and that's been what we've done ever since. So I always give them credit, which is where it's due. So we launched based on IDEO's impression, which was absolutely correct, that no one had put together the system, which is why no one had taken off really as a replacement brand to leverage technology to help.
So is IDEO a market research firm, or they actually did the development?
No, IDEO is probably the world's leading design firm. They do a lot of work in healthcare, so they have great deep healthcare expertise. They're the folks who designed, for instance, the TiVo remote control. They designed the Palm Pilot. So they do a lot of major work around design. Okay. But it's really all about what they call ideation and usability, and really understanding the system and the flow and everything, not just like a hardware design. Okay. So they, in fact, we went down to like the wireframes of the initial product design with them. Okay. So it was more than just an idea. We had a lot of meat and potato, leverageable.
But you outsourced basically the whole development effort. So you're kind of this virtual company that did, had a partner that did most of that, or
no?
How did you partition the work between, your outsource partner in the stuff that you guys did yourself?
When we worked together with IDEO, there was no development at the time. So we actually went down to the wireframes, but it wasn't coding.
Okay.
And by the time we were done there, then, you know, we did the coding ourselves at Independa.
Okay.
So at that point, we have a really strong relationship still with IDEO and good friends there. But, you know, from there on in, it was Independa doing the development.
Okay. And then LG TV, commercial TVs was like a major early partner for you guys too. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So LG, in parallel, they saw the same marketplace a little bit, you know, differently from their lens, but it was the same problem, which is we have 50 million people in the U.S. that are taking care of someone who is looking to stay independent in their home.
Yeah. So
big marketplace there. We have 5 million people, not 5 million people, 5 million beds in the hospitality market, which LG dominates. We have also 3.6 million beds in senior living, which no one dominates because there's no application for it.
Okay.
And we have about 1 million, it's actually just a little bit under 1 million now, hospital beds, which also LG dominates. So they dominate the hospital market, they dominate the hospitality market in commercial TVs, and they're world leaders in this. But there was no market leader, there was no value prop really for the senior living marketplace.
Even though it was a pretty big market.
Huge market, 3.6
yeah.
million versus, you know, aggregate of 5 million on the other side.
Okay.
So they looked at that marketplace and they realized it's really not about the TV, it's about the core application in how you deliver that.
Yeah.
And long story short, as we partnered together, they looked everywhere, they found us to be the best fit and having the best message, which again was the one I just shared with you.
Yeah.
And we built a holistic system. What they did, credit to them, is they spent tens of millions of dollars on their end to change the bowels of their market leading platform, the TV, to accommodate our solution.
Okay.
And they actually paid us NRE dollars, and then they also invested in us.
Okay.
And what we have together is what we call the Independa TV, which you know, high compliment LG internally calls the LG Healthcare TV.
Awesome.
So and then now we're marketing that more globally. So we started in Canada, and LG literally this week actually has started in the UK, and we have some footprint in other parts of the world as well. Because it's a global $130 billion company, and we're part of the firmware now of the same TV that we all see when we travel. It's the hotel bed now has Independa inside it.
Cool.
And they have hospital grade as well, so we're inside the hospital TVs as well.
Now you're sharing, I guess, medical information. So is there HIPAA requirements or HIPAA compliance stuff associated with your product, or how does that work?
Sure. I mean, we don't call it medical because really we are not intending or should be involved with the FDA past the health information.
Okay.
So there's a distinction, like if it's a, let's say, a Garmin or a Fitbit and it's health and wellness information,
right,
you don't have to go crazy with the FDA.
Okay.
But as soon as you start talking about diagnoses and information that doctors then use, that you have to go through the FDA.
Okay.
So from our standpoint, we are there to help you thrive as you age and to be more comfortable and safer, and live where you are longer.
Okay.
And that has some health information, but it's not medical.
But it's more the wellness industry as opposed to kind of the health, heavy duty FDA stuff. Okay.
It's all about keeping you away from being, you know,
which we all want.
Which we all want. That's the whole idea. And it's interestingly, really, to be independent, as whether you're elderly or not, is the same definition of, to your point, as what we all want, which is to stay healthy and not go to the next stage of care. Nobody wants to go to the next stage of care. A lot more cost, a lot more anguish, complexity. Who wants to go for? And for you and I, it might be something episodic, but for someone who might be in their late 70s, 80s, 90s, it might be the difference between independent living and assisted living. It might be the difference between assisted living and nursing home. Or it might be the difference between being able to stay in their own home, which is where 93% of the people want to stay, versus having to go into a community. So we're totally agnostic on where the person lives. It's really all about their desire, innate desire, to want to stay where they are for as long as possible. Okay.
So this gets kind of your marketing message about television that, you know, helps you thrive in place. So what are the components of that? I mean, I've been fortunate enough to walk through a demo of the product. It's very cool. But for our audience, I mean, what are the kind of component parts of the holistic product that you deliver?
Sure. So there's really three components. One is the real importance of connecting friends and family and loved ones to you wherever you are. Oftentimes the biggest issue actually ends up being social engagement.
Okay.
It's loneliness, isolation that leads to self-neglect, leads to medication neglect, which then leads to recidivism back into the system.
Yeah.
So independence in a large measure is really many ways defined and driven by how socially engaged I can be. And it's a complex issue, not all of which we can solve with the TV. For instance, if you stop driving, well, now you can't go to church. So now your circle of friends really collapses. And if you become frail, maybe you can't even go to collect the mail from your doorstep. So now you become a prisoner in your own home. So there's a lot of, really deep issues that have to be addressed. But at the end of the day, the more isolated you become, the more important it is to actually have human interaction. So people who are isolated typically are sitting in front of their TVs because we tend to want to just even hear the human voice.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing is we're taking a commodity appliance that everyone knows how to use. It's one of the two technologies everyone knows how to use, the TV and the telephone.
Yeah.
And we're turning that into an engagement window.
Okay.
So that social engagement is the first pillar. Picture sharing, video chat, message sharing, life stories, so you can capture someone's life in audio files and share it with
So
friends
this
and
isn't
family.
just from, as I understand it, there's the person that's being monitored or taken care of, and then there's a primary caregiver, but there's a broader social engagement with other friends and family
Exactly.
that can be on the platform.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's absolutely. So we have a free downloadable mobile app as well as unlimited use of web browsers by friends or professionals. So the caregiver who might be a professional caregiver as well uses the same platform, except they get to see all the people under their care. The daughter gets to see only their mom.
Okay.
So it's really three players: the organization, the end user, which is the care recipient, and then the friends and family, a circle of care around them.
Okay.
But to your point, so now all these people are engaged with you, and that changes the quality of your life.
Yeah.
The other thing is organizational engagement. So if you're in a senior living community or any kind of organization, maybe home care, maybe home health, maybe independent living, memory care, etc.
Sure.
There's requirements that you have and goals, and you have staff. And so what we do is we actually improve the top line. So if you're trying to sell a unit, the fact is that this is the one amenity that you can offer where it's not a swimming pool or a fitness center. It's where you live.
Yeah.
And it's an amenity that'll get used every time you come back into the room, versus very few people actually use the swimming pool. So when you go to the marketing session and you look at the pool, it's always empty, unfortunately, or no one's pumping iron. But when you come back in after a great meal of a 5-star chef, you will be alone maybe in your residence, but with Independa, you're never going to be lonely.
Okay.
And that sells that unit because people don't want to be leaving their friends and family behind, even as they move from their home of 20, 30 years into a community.
So let's say somebody, I was thinking primarily the market, somebody in their home, but even in assisted living or potentially even in a hospital, there are elements of the technology that are important in terms of the social engagement, even if you have somebody right there that's taking care of maybe one pillar of the overall 3 pillars that you provide.
Exactly, that's a great point. So, so the second pillar is the organizational benefit. So top line growth, efficiency with staff. So the types of services we provide, for instance, imagine having your menus right on the TV, or being able to ask for and receive surveys right on the TV.
Okay.
So now as a CEO, you get to know what's happening with your residents in a way that's much more efficient, much more effective than in the past. Versus once a year, you have to have somebody with a clipboard walk around.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you don't know how people reacted to this major event that you put together, for instance. Or doing broadcast messages, whether it's emergencies, so like a hurricane's coming maybe in Florida, or it could be as simple as it's 5:30, everyone in the dinner plan gets a reminder so they don't forget to eat. We can put together the community calendar right in front of you on the TV.
Okay.
So there's every one of these communities has a wellness director, and they typically run around about 70% of the time is spent calling people and knocking on doors to get them to come into the activities they've already signed up for.
Yeah.
So now we make that searchable right on the TV, so we reduce the inefficiency there. So there's a lot of areas where everyone is happier, the family member's happier because they're not calling the staff to say, could you check in on mom? Because they can now see mom, not just hear mom. And you don't have to print menus and stuff them under doors because they're right there in front of the TV. So those are the organizational engagement benefits. And then last, and you touched on this earlier, is the integrated remote care. It's really not medical, it's about health, activity, environmental, fitness, wellness, safety, all combined, so I can have threshold-based alerts, so I can catch little things before they become big things. And that's critical to providing not just independence, but we talked about hospitals. In the hospital of the future, in the medical system of the future, it's all about value-based, which means I'm now incented to keep you away, not to bring you back. So how do I keep you away if you go into a black box outside of my four walls and I don't know what's going on?
Okay.
But if I invest a little bit to help you have a better life, but also if you haven't stepped on the scale for a couple days and you're a congestive heart failure patient, what if your TV reminds you, it's 2 days, please step on the scale? What if you're not in front of your TV, you're out and about, and then you get a phone call because you didn't respond to the TV? And what if you still don't do it? Then you get an alert somewhere. It could, the alert may, in this case, go to a nurse who's taking care of you because you're part of a high-risk group. What if it's also 2 hours in the bathroom, not just the health information?
Sure.
What if you walked around all day, didn't open up the fridge? And maybe that goes to your daughter. So this combination of empowering all those who care for you outside and from a distance to help you stay healthy, that's what Independa provides. And those are the three pillars: social engagement through family and friends, community engagement with top line, bottom line efficiencies and brand improvements, and then integrated remote care.
Now, on the integrated remote care and monitoring element of it, if you're, let's say you're a upper middle class person and you have a lot of security cameras and sensors and kind of the whole Internet of Things, your house already has that. But let's say you're somebody that's kind of more blue collar, like how I grew up, and it's, my parents don't have that stuff. I mean, they live in a nice home, but they don't have all the sensors and everything like that. Does that require them to input information, or how do you do the remote monitoring and kind of more, I would say, the mainstream middle class level of communities?
Sure. So one of the design criteria that we have is no one who touches our system does more work than before.
Okay.
So that's critical, especially for the elderly person.
Right. Yeah.
They should do nothing and learn nothing new, which is why the TV is so transformative, because unlike passwords and virus scans and computers and tablets with power issues and all of that, this is what you're in front of anyway.
Yeah.
And you know how to use the remote control.
Yeah.
So that's a key starting point. In terms of what they have to enter or not, and anything that they need, for instance, if I have to use a pulse oximeter, I have multiple ways of entering that data into the system.
Okay.
I could use a wireless pulse oximeter, so I don't have to do anything different.
Okay.
That's how we would know you haven't used it.
Okay.
On the other hand, I can use my 10-year-old pulse oximeter as it is and either have data entered using my phone, so I can get a call and enter it on a regular basis. I can even enter it right on the TV using my remote control. Or my daughter could be on the phone with me and say, please use your pulse ox, and I can enter it right on the mobile app.
Okay.
So we're totally agnostic on we give you multiple ways.
Okay.
So, but you don't have to use a pulse oximeter if you're not using a pulse oximeter already.
Sure.
And that's the key. And in the absence of us, what happens is the daughter calls mom and says, what was your weight yesterday? And mom's like, oh, I weighed the same, honey. Don't worry about me. How are the kids? And then the daughter says, Mom, this is really serious stuff. I need to know. You keep saying it's the same. I'm fine. And so the whole conversation, literally tens of millions of people have this conversation all the time.
Right.
Probably every day.
Yeah.
And so what we do is make the quality of the conversation very different. Because if mom hasn't stepped on the scale, we know she knows. And that's the company's like, Mom, no, you got to step on it, because I then get that data if it's a wireless scale.
Yeah.
And if it's not, she has to enter it or I have to enter it. So it's something specific.
Okay. Interesting. So, I mean, with the aging population in the U.S. for sure, and I think, globally, is this going to be a growing market, or kind of how do you see the market evolving over time?
Well, this was the only market I found, which was huge to begin with and only accelerating forward. Yeah. And that's a strong statement. Like, how many markets do you have that start huge and then from there take off? Yeah. But that's the reality of what we have worldwide. And it's not just what everybody talks about, baby boomers and the hump going through society, but it's really the 85 and above that need the most help, and really 75, 85, 90, etc. Yeah. And that population is going to double in the next 13 years. So when you can imagine what's happening on that side, and that's really sort of the echo effect of the baby boomers, because the 65-year-olds are great. And
people are living longer. So you've got a big population plus
they're
people
active,
living longer. Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's global. It's we have Florida, which is the rest of us on fast forward, right? So it's not like it's an anomaly. That's what California is going to look like in about 15 years. Okay. So, but it's the way Florida is today. And then we have Japan, who kind of makes Florida look like a middle school, right? So I mean, there's parts of the world that not just demographically, but also in terms of new immigration and people working and tax receipts and so forth, are in much worse shape than we are. So Japan really doesn't have the population to support their elderly. Whereas we've had strong immigration, so we have a much richer tax base, even though it's the proportions are going smaller all the time.
Yeah. So do you, I mean, how much money have you raised for the company at this point, and do you need to raise more growth capital, or kind of where are you at on that front?
Yeah, we've raised a little under 11 million. We've gone through our B round. We're actually doing a convertible note, a really attractive convertible note, and it's a $3 million note, and there's some strategics interested in coming in. And after that, then we'll go after our C round for global expansion.
Okay, cool. So I mean, the company's been around how long now?
It was founded. Independa was founded technically, I think it was April of 2009. I'm not sure, April 9th, I think. But we started coding middle of 2010, and we really went to market with the TV 2014 with LG.
Okay.
So from
a
product
launch,
essentially.
And you're not tied to the LG hardware. There's other hardware possibilities for you guys, correct?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we're tied to our partnership there. They're a strategic investor and great partners. However, together we've actually had they've created a set-top box, which we call the AnyTV Companion.
Okay.
And the AnyTV Companion can go on any TV and turn it into all the things that I just shared with you.
Okay.
So it's very powerful because a lot of times, obviously, senior living communities, they already have TVs in there.
Well, yeah, there's a massive install base of TVs.
Exactly, exactly. So for new construction, new and renovated hospitals, renovated senior living, it's great to put the TV in. But if you want to get all the same benefits, you can do that really cost effectively using the set-top box.
Okay, cool. And then how do you make money? Is it a royalty-based scheme, or is it a usage-based scheme, or kind of how does that work?
It's subscription-based per care recipient. So So you can have unlimited caregivers around that, which is very powerful. So I can have a family of 20 people doing journaling with me, doing life stories with me, sending me pictures, doing video chat with me, managing my medications, managing my calendar, as well as an organization with whatever number of staff doing that. And so we don't charge on any of that. We charge on the per user. It could be a bed, let's say in a hospital. It could be a person in a senior living community per month.
So it's basically an all-you-can-eat buffet, though, right now, where you're providing, because it's a pretty rich platform. I mean, it's not only a rich platform in terms of what you provide today. You can build other things on that platform for service delivery. I mean, like affiliates and things like that. I mean, from a roadmap standpoint, how do you think about that?
So that's a great question. I mean, one of the things that I didn't touch upon is the fact that you can deliver any content over this platform, over the broadcast, which is unique. Nobody else in the world can say that. So you can actually deliver, let's say, video content. It could be educational, it could be entertainment, it could be compliance related. And you can deliver that right onto the person's TV. Again, using a set-top box or the LG TV, independent TV. And with that, you start expanding into other areas, like we deliver any kind of web content.
Sure.
Well, what about e-commerce? So what if you can actually reorder your incontinence products right through the TV, so you don't have to ask someone about it, and it's a private interaction right there on the TV. So the possibilities of turning the TV into this platform, as you said, which we have done, is huge. And then we're looking for big partners to do that, because as Independa, as an emerging company, our goal is we're a technology company and we have this platform, and then the right partners take this platform and they really run with it.
Sure. I mean, it sounds super exciting, and you're kind of still on the very front end of it, so that's awesome. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about, maybe something that people don't know about you, and you obviously have a lot of experience now, as we talked about before we started the program, so you've seen a lot and done a lot.
Well, I appreciate that. So, I mean, you mentioned I was born in Tehran, so I'm Iranian American, and I haven't been back since '80, and so it's been a long time. But so that's one thing people may not know. The other thing, which is kind of cool, maybe the others wouldn't know, and I've long since given this up, but for a while I was a chief driving instructor for BMW in New York, in the New York chapter. Yeah. So I did a lot of that back east, and I did a little bit of that when I came to California, but once you become a dad, you take at least probably a 20-year hiatus, which is just great. So that's another thing. I love soccer. I played soccer my whole life. I played for NYU. And
do you still play now?
No, I actually injured myself, unfortunately. So I would play, and I hope to play soon once my injury gets better. But it's actually like a bone-on-bone hip thing, so I have to take care of it.
All right.
Yeah, but other than that, and I watch soccer now, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything that I missed about Independa, or anything you want to highlight for our audience of entrepreneurs and startup CEOs from your experience? Things that pearls of wisdom based on all the things that you've done.
I don't know if I have pearls of wisdom. I mean, I think everyone knows the biggest thing is really persistence. So it all sounds great, and we're going great places, but it's not always great every moment. And when we got our Series A, everyone really complimented me, and it was a tough time for people to raise money, and they said, "Oh, that was great job, etc." And my point then, which I'll share with the audience, is 2 days before we got the Series A, I wasn't an idiot. And 2 days after getting the Series A, I wasn't a genius. So you really have to sort of persevere and keep going, and you have to raise the money, and you have to take care of your investors. But if you're onto something really special, it takes a while for people to see that. Mm-hmm. And that's really, if you're building a better mousetrap, people know how a mousetrap works. But if you're really doing something that's out of the norm, like taking a TV and turning it into something else, then you have to deal with the fact that somebody didn't wake up that morning and figure out, how do I get Independa into my senior living community? Yeah. And so along those lines, I would say you have to learn never to take excitement and mistake it for opportunity. Mm-hmm. And that's probably very common, because a lot of times people get very excited, myself included, on what the possibilities are and what the return on investment is and what a powerful this and all of that, and that's true. Yeah. And people get excited with you. Yeah. And yet, is there a budget? What's driving the compelling event? How many leaders are there really in your marketplace? Are they pioneers? Are they leaders versus laggards? Yeah. And really being kind of smart around being efficient with your resources to get those leaders, make a big showcase example out of them as you move forward. So just those are the few things that come to mind. Persistence.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kian. This has been really, really great. This is Patrick Henry from QuestFusion with The Real Deal, What Matters.
Thank you, Patrick. I enjoyed it. Appreciate it. Great job.